So a question that's been coming up over and over again from students, and I would like to address for anyone that it might be helpful to, is when you are in a customer support role or a customer trainer role. We work with a lot of technology companies where they're helping the client that's already bought the software, their technology, to roll it out, or bought the product, like to adopt it. And they're in that mode. And so when we teach them about the importance of a strong call to action or a next step, we see people maybe freeze up a little bit at first. They're like, oh, that's for sales, that's for the account manager, the account executive, the pre-sales person. That's all about that. But the power of having a strong and intentional call to action or next step is something that is really, really helpful in any conversation that you're having. And we really have been able to change the way people think about this, and we've seen light bulb moments with one little change. And so I want to offer it to you today if it's helpful to you. Whatever kind of role that you're in, especially if it's a non-sales related role, this is something that could be really, really helpful to you. And I'm just going to go over to the whiteboard real quick to show you what I mean. So you might be thinking of it in terms of, right now I'm talking to my client or my customer. And once you get to the end of the training or whatever you're doing with them, you need them to think about what the next step is going to be so they're going to be successful. Whatever the point is, or the next thing they need to do on their journey. And you might feel a little bit of a tightening in your stomach or something like, okay, now I have to give them the next step, the call to action. It feels salesy. And this little trick seems to help people quite a bit. So I'd like to offer it to you today. Instead of thinking of them as your client or your customer, I'd like you to just completely get rid of that. Let's pretend they are not your client or your customer. I want you to think of it just as if you're talking to a good friend. You have a good friend. Think of someone in your mind that you admire or that you have warm feelings towards, and they're calling you to ask you for advice in something that you're an expert in. It could be so many different things. It could be that family member that calls you up because they need help with something on their computer that seems easy to you, but you're able to explain it to them in a way that helps them out tremendously. I'd like you to think of a friend that now has called you and asked you for something, and you've helped give them some information that's really going to help them. And before you get off the call, though, you want to make sure that they understand, like, okay, here's what I recommend that you do. Kind of in that conspiratorial sense that do this, and then do this, and then you'll be successful. These are the shortcuts. This is what I recommend you do next so that you really can see the value. And just think of that friend instead of them being your prospect or your customer. What would you tell a friend in a conspiratorial tone almost of, okay, here's what you really need to do. Do this, and then do this, and then do this, and you have a way better chance of succeeding and being successful. Just changing that little bit, the way you think about the information that you're giving to someone can make all the difference. And so the next time that you're thinking about, okay, it's time for me to land my message, my call to action, my next step, really think about, if this was my friend, what would I tell them to do next so that they could be successful? Because there's a place in me that really wants to see them be successful and to feel successful. And what kind of gift, what kind of thing can I give them to serve them to ensure that they have the best chance of getting the result that they want? You'll find that if you come to it, if you approach it from that attitude and that spirit, that you're going to have much more relevant and much more impactful conversations that end up helping you to get your job done, but even more importantly, serving your customer at a deeper level and really helping them feel like you're on their side and that you're their trusted advisor.